Hi everybody and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be showing you how I plasterboarded the garden room project that I'm currently doing. As you can see right now, I'm screwing the boards to the ceiling. My brother-in-law was kind enough to come down and help me lift these up. If you don't have anybody to help you, you could hire a board lift to do this on your own, so it is potentially possible to do it entirely on your own. However, I was lucky enough to have some help with this, which was much appreciated, and the entire ceiling took us about 30 minutes perhaps. It was relatively easy, and it's just a case of holding it up in place, getting a few screws in. So you'll see that I hold one end up, he holds the other end up, I get a few screws in just to hold it in place, and then I quickly go over to relieve him there and add a few in at his end, at which point he can let go and I can just keep adding the screws. So for the ceiling and the walls here, I used 42mm drywall screws. In theory, you could use 35mm screws in the ceiling, potentially 25mm in the wall, but I had 42mm screws, so that's what I ended up using. As you can see, the walls here, very simple. We're just cutting them to height, so this is not complicated at all. However, you do have to cut around the back boxes for sockets, light switches, and this does need to be accurate. Also, the more accurate you can be with the height of your cuts, the better, because it's going to mean there's less filling and messing about to do. And also, we're packing them off the floor slightly as well, and that's going to stop any moisture transfer coming into the boards. Okay, so with regards to cutting the boards, I'm just going to show you how to do that now. This is very simple. I mean, it is just a case of measuring, marking on the board, and then cutting with a Stanley knife. So you can see here that I just measured floor to ceiling, and I'm just going to mark that on the board. Prior to that measurement, I had measured the other side as well. There is a slope on the side here from front to back. It's around 100mm. So I'm just going to mark that there. So we do have to do a sloped cut on these. And then I'm just going to double check that just to make sure that that was the right measurement, because obviously it was the one that I'd measured prior to the last one. So once I'm happy with that, I'm just going along here now, and what I'm actually doing is I'm marking the ceiling with a pencil, and this is just so I know where the studs are. So when the board goes up, I can just use a level to create a straight line down, and that means I'm going to be hitting the studs with a screw every time I go through the board. Okay, so once I've done that, it's time to actually cut the board to size. So for that, very simple, I'm just going to use a straight edge. In this case, I've got a spirit level, and I'm just going to use a Stanley knife to just score along the line between the marks there. I'll just do that a couple of times just to make sure it's, gone through a little bit. We're not trying to go all the way through the board here though. We're just trying to go, a couple of mil into the board, and then we're going to lift it up here and just knock into the back of the board, and that's going to snap the board. We can bend it back and then literally just score up the back with a Stanley knife, and you can just easily move that piece away, and the board now is the exact right length. So it's really not complicated. You don't need complicated tools to do this. A Stanley knife, a pencil, and a straight edge tape measure. That's all you need. With regards to cutting the back boxes out, you can see that I'm starting to do this now. Now, the most important thing here is the measurement. You've got to make sure that you transfer the measurement from the wall onto the board very accurately, because if you have gaps around your back boxes, these are going to need filling, and it's going to just make things more messy. If you get it nice and neat, it's just going to be a neater job. So I'm just scoring round the lines there just to get it going. Following that, I'm going to lift it up and cut through it. I'm just going to use a pad saw here and my Stanley knife again. So I push through the corners here with my Stanley knife all the way through the board just to get it going. And then I'll carry on with a pad saw all the way down the line. Now, if you've got a multi-tool or a jigsaw, by all means use a power tool, but for me personally, it's a quick job. It doesn't take very long at all, so I'm quite happy to do this with a Stanley knife and a pad saw. And it's just a case of going around, sticking within the lines, and obviously because I've scored it with a knife prior to cutting with the pad saw, it kind of, in my opinion, keeps you within the lines. It just keeps things a little bit neater, which is one of the reasons that I like to score it first before I start cutting it. Once you've done 3 sides, you can just tap the other side through. It's just going to fold like that, and you can just cut it with a knife. And there we go, we have a perfect cutout. Okay, so that's it. There's not really much more to it, guys. You can see the room now. All the boards are fit in place. pretty neat, not many gaps, you know, not a lot of filling to be done. All the back boxes have been cut round nice and neat. I've cut the reveals into the door there. You'll notice above the door here there are a few holes. This is just the bolts that were bolting the lintel, the timber above the door together, and it was pushing the plasterboard out, so I just cut a hole for it. I'll just fill that with a bit of filler when I do the dry lining. And you can see around these back boxes, it's all looking very neat. So that is another point actually. In the next video we're going to be dry lining. This is not being plastered, I'm going to be dry lining. These are tapered edge boards. The reason for that is I can't plaster, I've never plastered before. I have done a tiny bit of dry lining, so I decided to do the thing that I had a little bit of experience with. So yeah, that's going to be the next video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. I know it's been short, but it is relatively simple. I didn't want to overdo it and overcomplicate it. And I will see you in the next video for dry lining. So I'll see you then.